A high school English teacher retired with more than $1 million in his portfolio. Not a finance guy, not a tech founder, a teacher who graded essays for 30 years. I keep coming back to this story because of what it does to the narrative we all grew up with. If you make six figures and you still feel broke, you've been told the answer is more income. I'm here to tell you the math says otherwise. You and I have been pointed at the wrong number our whole adult lives, not income. Something quieter, something almost nobody actually tracks. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Quick math. A person earning $100,000 a year who saves half of it puts away $50,000 annually, every year, like clockwork. A person earning $500,000 who saves 5% puts away $25,000 in the same window. After 15 years at a 7% return, that lower earner sits on roughly $1,257,000 in index funds. The high earner, about half that. Read that again. The teacher beats the surgeon, by a lot. You might be thinking the high earner could just invest better, pick the right stocks, find the genius advisor. I'd argue that's exactly the trap. Returns help, income helps, but neither of them touches what saving rate does over 15, 20, 30 years. The high earner needs market magic to catch up. The lower earner just needs to keep doing what they're already doing. This is where Andrew Hallam comes in. Hallam taught high school English in Canada, public school salary. He hit millionaire status in his late 30s and wrote a book about how he did it called Millionaire Teacher. Yes, that's the actual title, I didn't make it up. Read his approach and there's no exotic strategy in there. No options, no timing, no insider edge. He saved aggressively and bought boring index funds. That's the entire move. Now you might say sure, but a teacher saving 40% of 60 grand still saves less in absolute dollars than a surgeon saving 8% of $500,000. Fair point. And here's the answer the math gives. The famous Mr. Money Mustache framework lays out years to financial independence by savings rate, not by income. At a 10% savings rate, you're looking at roughly 51 years to retire. At 25%, about 32. At 50%, about 17 years. Income does not appear in that calculation. It is genuinely missing from the formula. If that hits, hit that like. So why does income feel like everything when the math says it isn't? Because of one quiet mechanism nobody warns you about. Picture this. You get a $15,000 raise. You feel great about it. 2 weeks later, you upgrade your apartment because you deserve it. A month after that, the car lease ticks up. New gym, better takeout. 6 months in, your monthly expenses have absorbed every dollar of that raise, and your savings rate hasn't moved. Your bank account is the same. Your stress is the same. The raise is gone. Lifestyle ratcheted up, and ratchets don't go backwards easily. You might be thinking this isn't you. I'd push back gently. It's almost everyone. The expense doesn't feel extravagant in the moment. It feels earned. That's the trap. It feels like a reward, so you don't classify it as creep. Meanwhile, your wealth-building velocity hasn't budged. Now, can it be controlled? Of course. People reverse this all the time, and it usually starts with one move I'll get to in a minute. Here's where it gets really interesting. The reason savings rate matters so much is something called the snowball phase. The math is genuinely beautiful. Picture this. You invest $10,000 a year at a 7% return. The first $100,000 takes you about 7.8 years to hit. Painful, slow. But then something flips. Once you've got that $100,000 sitting there, 7% of $80,000 is $5,600, just from the existing pile before you add another nickel. Your old contributions start out earning your new ones. The portfolio starts working harder than you do. If that one number, that $100,000, just sat there at 7% and you never added another dollar, it would grow to about $761,000 in 30 years. Walk away from it longer, 33 years, you're at roughly $1 million, from 100 grand, untouched. This is the part that genuinely floors me every time I run the numbers. You might be thinking the first million is harder than the first 100 grand. Honestly, it's the opposite. Charlie Munger called the first 100,000 the brutal part because there's no momentum yet. After that, it accelerates. Each milestone arrives faster than the last. The S&P 500 has averaged roughly 7.17% annually after inflation since 1926. That's not a forecast. That's a 100-year track record. If this changed how you think about it, subscribe so you can get more. Now compare that snowball phase to what a household at the top 10% of net worth actually looks like. According to the Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances published in October 2023, the threshold to crack the top 10% of American households by net worth is roughly $1,559,000, not income, net worth. Most high earners assume they're trending toward that number. The savings data says they're not. Here's where I want to be honest about something. The structural pressures are real. Childcare in expensive metros frequently runs $20,000 to $25,000 a year, and high-quality infant care can hit $30,000 to $50,000. Doctors graduating in 2022 carried an average of $241,600 in student loan debt before their first paycheck. These are real numbers. They are not excuses. They actually make lifestyle creep more dangerous, not less, because the margin is already compressed. Edge case worth naming. If you're a high-income earner with $250,000 or more in non-dischargeable graduate school debt, the savings rate framework doesn't apply cleanly to your first 3 to 5 years. Your highest leverage move is debt service, not portfolio building. The snowball phase still waits for you. It just starts later. You might also be thinking high earners need complex strategies, sophisticated allocations, tax loss harvesting, private placements. The data disagrees harder than you'd expect. The Dalbar quantitative analysis of investor behavior reported that over the 30 years ending in 2015, the S&P 500 returned 10.35% annually. The average equity mutual fund investor earned 3.66%. That's a 6.69 percentage point gap, 6.69% per year for 30 years. If you have a kid or a partner, drop in the comments which spending category creeps on you hardest. That gap isn't tax. It isn't fees alone. It's behavior, panic selling, performance chasing. A famous study tracked 66,465 households between 1991 and 1996. The most active traders earned 11.4% annually, while the broader market returned 17.9%. The smarter you think you are with this stuff, the more it tends to cost you. I know how that sounds. The data is the data. So what actually moves the needle? 3 quiet things you can do this week. First, automate. $50 a month at 8% over 20 years compounds to about $29,451.55. $200 a month at 8% over 10 years lands at roughly $36,789. Double that to $400 a month and you're at $73,579 over the same window. Linear input, exponential output. The trick is making the contribution invisible, direct deposit, paycheck day transfer, a recurring buy. Won't miss what you never see, assuming the automation actually fires, so check it next week. Second, max what's already on the table. The 2026 401k contribution limit is $24,500 plus an $8,000 catch-up if you're 50 or older. If your employer matches and you're not maxing, you're declining money that's literally yours. Third, and this one is the social part. Net worth is invisible. Spending is visible. The folks I've watched build real wealth on ordinary salaries all share one trait, and it's not intelligence or timing. It's the willingness to look to people around them like they're not quite winning. The new car your neighbor drives is a visible signal. His brokerage account is not. You don't know who's actually rich on your block. That's the point. Some will say resisting visible status is itself a form of status, just inverted. Maybe. The math doesn't care about the philosophy. It cares about the deposit. Here's the screwdriver. Open your benefits portal this week and run 2 numbers. What percentage of your gross income did you actually save last month? And is your 401k contribution maxed against the 24,500 limit? If those 2 answers don't make you proud, you now know your number 1 problem. So back to the teacher. He didn't beat the surgeon by being smarter, luckier, or better paid. He beat him by saving a higher percentage of a smaller paycheck for longer than the surgeon saved. A tiny percentage of a much bigger one. That's the whole story. The variable that builds wealth is your savings rate, not your income. The teacher's salary was the proof. This is general education, not personalized advice for your situation. Before you change your retirement contributions or build a plan around any of this, talk to a fee-only financial advisor or a CFP who can see your full picture, debts, taxes, the whole thing. Now, if you're sitting there thinking you don't actually need $1 million to retire, you're probably right. The headlines keep pushing that number as the real finish line, but the Federal Reserve's data tells a different story about what most retirees actually have. That's the next video on the screen, and it'll change how you think about your own target. I'll see you there.